Get inside, Ruben.
Hey, you guys work right here. Work.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that.
Get inside, Ruben. Hey, mijo.
You're okay.
Hey,
Some water.
let him go, mijo. You gotta let that left hand go. La zurda. Abajo. Y arriba.
You're doing great. Keep turning to the
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And keep your left hand up. And
Yeah.
go to the
Hey,
body.
you gotta start hitting him with that. Hey, you gotta start hitting him with that left hand hard. He's starting to come in. You're not throwing enough left hand.
Let's see if we can find out where this clash of heads actually happened, which causes Guerrero's eye to open, and yes, it did. It was a clash of heads accidentally.
Now, fortunately for Guerrero, this cut is not in as bad a spot as he had it, for instance, in his right eye against Jordan. It should not be a factor, a huge factor for him.
Well, that all depends if you get blood in your eye.
You know, this happens a lot when a southpaw and orthodox fighter meet, where there's an accidental clash of heads. But I've seen from Klaasen enough instances in this fight where he jumps in behind his head and kind of uses his head as almost like the jab and then follows with the right hand. That, you know, it's a suspicious clash of heads, let's put it that way.
Let me tell you, my good buddy Evander Holyfield boxes in a similar fashion.
And one of Malcolm's kids is named after Evander Holyfield. One of his 3 children. His son Evander is 4.
Well, the use of his head in this fight would make Evander proud.
Evander's a very, very big name in South Africa. Widely used.
Yeah, we were reminded of that when we asked him how come he didn't name one of his kids Lennox.
Now, like against Efren Hinojosa, here's Guerrero with a cut. It ain't a good cut. It ain't in a good spot. And he has a chance for redemption after his performance against Jordan. And in this case, he's faced with a world-class opponent who's clearly very determined and who has had his moments and maybe even hurt Guerrero at points in this fight.
Guerrero is winning the fight, so he has no reason to say, you know, he doesn't want to continue. So when you're winning the fight by this margin, you know, you got to suck it up.
But it's not as though he's winning a fight against a front-runner type fighter, a fighter likely to tire, and a fighter who's not determined. Klaasen's not a front-runner. He is determined, and he's not likely to tire.
See that cut on the left eye of Guerrero's opened up. It would behoove him to keep circling to his right as he did earlier.
And you can see Klaasen fighting with renewed enthusiasm as a result of the cut, most likely, to Guerrero. He sees an opportunity.
Just you feel like Malcolm Klaasen has to just do more. He's never scored a knockout past the 8th round.
Who's up? Stop. Break. Step back.
Final 5 seconds of round number 8. Klaasen's junior lightweight title on the line against Robert Guerrero here in Houston, Texas. Oh, fans, September 22nd, Joe Buck Live returns as the Emmy Award-winning broadcaster sits down with the biggest names to the world of sports for in-depth interviews, topical discussion, and much, much more. And September the 26th, World Championship Boxing returns with heavyweight titleist Vitaly Klitschko taking on one of the most exciting young contenders in the sport. He steps into the ring against Chris Arreola.
Okay? Just great. Keep working that jab. You're doing real good. That cut's nothing, eh? It's nothing. All right?
Give him some water.
Okay.
Wash
Water. Wash it, Bob. Here.
Casey Guerrero looking on anxiously as her husband, Robert Guerrero, tries to take that man's belt away. Malcolm Klaasen of South Africa here on HBO's Boxing After Dark. Still to come our main event, Juan Diaz against Paulie Malignaggi. Bob Papa, Max Kellerman, Lennox Lewis ringside, along with our unofficial ringside scorer, Harold Letterman. Good disciplined fight for Guerrero. Been able to stay out of harm's way. He circled to his right as he eats a right hand, but going back. Suffer that cut in round number 7. Accidental clash of heads. Just so you know, if that cut worsened before this fight reached its conclusion and they had to stop the fight, they would go to the scorecards because it was an accidental clash of heads.
You have to imagine Guerrero's way up on the scorecards.
You would think, Max, but one never knows.
In this case, not only is he winning the fight, he's a Golden Boy fighter on a Golden Boy promotion. So any kind of political pressure that there exists or there's perceived to exist would be on Guerrero's side.
Clausen comes in with the belt in his first fight in the United States. Nice combination to the body. Goes up to the head, does Clausen. Digging with some body shots is the South African Clausen. This time we've really seen Guerrero stand in harm's way. Bounces out.
It's understandable. It's a grueling fight. He set a very busy pace. He's taken a lot of shots. He's given a lot. He's cut. Taking a breather here and there.
Guerrero just kind of hanging on the shoulder of Clausen, so he can't get his arms free.
And Guerrero's, you know, that's a pretty smart move in a way, you know what I mean? If you're a little bit tired, kind of put your body on the guy so he doesn't have enough punching room to hit you, and it kind of wastes time a little bit.
Yeah, I like the way Guerrero's used his size in this fight, leaning on Clausen on the inside.
You know, Guerrero has to keep his composure right now because he's falling apart just a little bit. Put his hands up, make sure he keeps his back off of the ropes.
Coming up in our main event, Paulie Malignaggi against Juan Diaz here in Diaz's hometown. Malignaggi spoke with Max earlier, feels the deck might be stacked.
Paulie, you've been verbal over the last week about how the deck is stacked against you. How is it stacked against you?
Well, you know, I think it's more than an opinion. I think it's so-called, you know, it's facts, man. I mean, I've brought up Gil Van Hoy and Raul Kai Sr. for a reason because, you know, these were two guys that in Texas judged the Rocky Juarez fight, Chris John fight a few months ago as a draw. And everyone who saw that fight knows it wasn't a draw, you know. So, you know, Texas, as far as Van Hoy is concerned, he's a Texas judge. This is a fringe title fight or whatever we're going to call it. I was promised neutral officials. Before I signed the contract with the fight, they promised me neutral officials, and we didn't get neutral officials. To his credit, Mr. Dickie Cole, the commissioner the commissioner of Texas, has promised me a fair fight. Texas is not known to have too many fair fights. But you know what? I'm going to leave it in his hand. He promised me I'll shake his hand if I get a fair deal, because tonight I'm going to show everybody who Paulie Malignaggi is.
And what about the size of the ring and the weight stipulation?
Yeah, you know, I had to struggle a little bit to make the weight, but, you know, I made it. I'm always in shape, and I'm always disciplined as a fighter and as a man. You know what I mean? It's my responsibility to make the weight, and I made it. I didn't like that I had to agree to 138.5 pounds, but I did it anyway. You know, the size of the ring also was out of my hands, you know? So, okay, so they got everything. They stacked the deck. We'll see if they're good enough to win with the stacked deck, because, you know what? I'm so sharp right now, and I feel so good right now, that they still probably ain't going to have enough, you know what I mean? Unless they flat out rob me.
Thanks, Paulie.
Yeah, Malignaggi says he hasn't had to make 138.5 in about 6 years. And he says having to make 140, he said probably a total of 6 hours is what he's actually weighed 140 pounds to get to the weight.
I tell you, it's right about one thing. The ring is small.
Time in.
A couple of things that you may have missed while we were going over the Malignaggi and Diaz situation. Guerrero, at the end of that round, Clausen kind of gave him that tap as if to say, good fight. And Guerrero swatted at him as if to say, yeah, good fight, but we're still in a fight. We're not friends. Hey, look, just now Guerrero walked over, and while he was in the neutral corner, looked over at me and nodded as if, am I fighting with heart? And the answer is certainly yes.
All right, let's take a look at the scorecard from Harold Letterman.
Okay, Bob. 87, 84, 6 rounds to 3. Rabbit, there goes Guerrero. You know, Bob, when Rabbit Guerrero lets this guy get in close, just like that, Klaasen murders him. I mean, Klaasen's really good in close. He works those hands, he shoe shines him, he goes to the body real well. Rabbit Guerrero, when he keeps the fight at a distance, like he's doing there, gets off his shots and moves, is winning the fight. But when Klaasen gets in close, Klaasen looks good. He's a very good fighter, but he's having a problem with that height, and that's the problem. But did you notice between rounds 10 and 11, it must have taken 3 minutes with John Shirley having that ring pulled off. So a big rest for Robert Guerrero. 6-3, Guerrero.
Stop.
And we approach the midway point of round number 10. You know, Guerrero, it's 2-1, more than 2-1 in punches thrown between Guerrero and Klaasen. He's had that volume going. Lennox, he's lapped into some dangerous moments where he's kind of gone straight back or languished in front of Klaasen, who obviously can rip some big shots, but for the